Welcome back to another exciting episode of Psych Thoughts. I'm going to use exciting very loosely here, but you keep clicking play, so that means a lot to us. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, share our page, leave a comment. I don't know, do whatever you want. It's a free country. I'm Derek. I'm joined by my best friend and co-host. His name is
Doug. Good to see you all back again, as we are always. It's odd. I don't know what to say. You know, it's kind of weird. I want to say something fun like, I see you out there. We've took over your
fact
camera.
about Doug. Fun fact about Doug, when you put him on the spot, he doesn't know what to say. Side note, it's a really good way to get him to shut up.
So, but
Doug
it's
and I
very
have an
hard.
Doug and I have an intern. She signed up for another round. I don't know why. Her name's Elaine. Elaine, say hi.
Hello, everyone. You're going to ask for more. I got nothing. I got nothing. I prepare everything else. I don't prepare what I'm going to say.
Yeah, well, that happens. Eventually, we'll have a song. It's been like, I don't know, 3 months of Psych Thoughts on YouTube. We've got no song. It's probably going to be after quarantine time, and then we'll get some type of song. We are joined by what's become a Psych Thoughts staple, who at this point, I don't even know if we can do the show without. Her name, Dr. Nicole Henniger. How are you doing?
Hi, everyone. I'm doing great. I'm on Psych Thoughts.
Life is
good.
Love having you on the show. I wish you had more going on in your life. But clearly,
I kind of wish I did, that I could, go on my honeymoon, see people.
Little things.
Yeah, there's a lot of life changes happening. It's good.
Those of you who've been tuning into the channel for very long, you kind of understand what we do. We have a topic. We usually get off of it pretty quickly. Doug will bring us back around. I'll detract a little more. And then Elaine will say, all right, we're done. And then the show will end. But we did an episode a little bit ago where Elaine asked us some questions and we kind of did our best. So let's see what we can do today on this short, abbreviated, special episode of Psych Thoughts.
Okay, so we're going to let Dr. Henniger talk a little more than we did the last show she was in. So. But first of all, I'm going to ask all of you a question so that our listeners.
I'm not answering.
I know who's answering first.
Our watchers can get to know all of you better. When you started college, did you start out as a psychology major, or did you start another major, and what was that?
I started. Wow, this is exciting. It was like there was silence, and then I could pick up, and wow, this is great. Best intern ever.
Thank you.
I started as undecided, actually, but I had to declare a major pretty quick, and I declared physics. So I did not start as a psych major, but I knew I wanted to do psychology in some capacity because I was interested in it. So I started just taking some classes, and then in my sophomore year, I think I declared double major, physics and psychology, which doesn't really go together. But then I switched my physics to neuroscience, and that went together better. And actually the physics helped me with neuroscience because I sort of had that background in kind of hard science and understanding even things like fMRI takes a lot of physics. So understanding how that stuff worked. So it was a good path, but no, I did not start as a psychology major.
And the rest of you?
Okay, I'd have to be drunk to follow that. Okay, that's not. I mean, come on. I started out in physics and then I double majored. My story has nothing like that. You know, my story is basically I went to college and I had no idea what I wanted to be. I majored in everything from agriculture to zoology. And then I went into engineering and I took a bunch of engineering classes. And then I had that epiphany where I went into psychology. And I tell this story because it's true, but I always want to say I majored in psychology because I was always able to help my friends, and I talked to people and I just knew that. No, I majored in psychology because I was dating a girl who was a psych major, and you know, when you're in love and in college, you take a class together. And she got me to take Intro to Psych with her. And I did. And I was like, I like this. I really do. It was like a tuning fork moment that you just go, yeah, this is for me. And that's how I ended up majoring in psychology. I just lucked into it, you know. And that's how I ended up being, you know. I tell students all the time, take stuff that you think might interest you, because you never know that, bam, you'll have that moment. You're like, this is what I like. So I stayed with it. And I stayed with it longer than I did the girlfriend. So that's how I got where I'm at.
Okay, Derrick, I'm sorry. Would you please answer the question?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
He's moody now.
I came to university as an engineering major. When I was in middle school and when I was in high school, I was the president of the STEM club called ACME. And science was just always the thing that I loved a lot. So, and I liked taking stuff apart, and I liked kind of the concept of coming up with creative ideas. So I was an engineering major. The problem with being an engineering major is I absolutely hated engineering. I liked building stuff. I like figuring stuff out. I still like to build stuff. If we ever get back to campus, we have Duck Day. That's the kind of stuff I love. I like figuring stuff like that out, right? So I started to hate college. I hated college a lot because I hated my major, and didn't go to class a lot because of that, and have the GPA to prove it if you ever want to know that. But I had this idea that I was a firefighter at the time. I was going to go to EMT school, so I went to EMT school and kind of worked around the medical world for a while. And then randomly, I had a introduction to psychology class. And much like Doug is saying, when you find your place, you know it, right? And it sounds cheesy and it sounds corny. It was a huge class, like the size class that Doug teaches now somehow. And it was like every class, the professor was talking to me, and it was stuff I was supposed to hear. Like, it felt very, very right. Changed my major and went from psychology to counseling, and then clinical counseling for my PhD. It took me a while to find psychology. So no, I was, and I still enjoy engineering. I've got a lot of engineering classes in my background and on my transcript, and I love that kind of stuff. I like more the biology medical stuff than kind of the fluid dynamic type stuff, but those types of things are fun. I wanted to build prosthetic limbs. That's what I was interested in.
Okay, now that we know a little bit about each of you, I'm gonna give you guys some myths for you to discuss and laugh about, or whatever takes your fancy. The first one is that smiling makes you happier.
I wouldn't know anything about that.
No.
Yeah.
Pass.
Pass.
Let Nicole answer. She's the emotional one.
Yeah, so that relates to the facial feedback hypothesis, right? Which is that kind of part of the way you figure out how you're feeling is you take the feedback from your face and then say, oh, how am I feeling? Like, well, I'm smiling, so I must be happy, or I'm frowning, or I have disgust nose, or whatever it is. And so you're sensing your own face, and that's influencing what you're feeling. It does have an influence. So there's mixed evidence out there. It's not a strong effect. It's not the only thing that will impact how you feel, but there is a teeny tiny effect in some conditions where you can, if you have somebody smiling, they'll report feeling happier. And what's interesting is, so like if you just tell someone to smile, of course they know that you're telling them to smile, and there's all the meaning that comes with that. So it's not sure, like, is it that the smiling is what matters, or is it that just being reminded of something happy, like a smile, makes you happier? But the Strack experiment is what it's called. So Strack was a researcher who came up with this way. He said, put this pen in your mouth. To half of his participants, he said, we're going to see for people who are who can't hold pens in their hand, alternate ways of holding pens. And so we'd like you to put this in your mouth and hold it with only your teeth. And so if you imagine how you would do that, And so it activates the same muscles, the zygomaticus major here, as smiling does. And then they had them read cartoons, and they saw that those people thought that the cartoons were funnier than people who held a pen in their lips with only their lips. Right? So, and then you're activating these frowny muscles. And so that study has sometimes been replicated and sometimes not. It depends if you're being watched. So if there's a video camera on, the effect won't happen. Like there's all these things that it's a very sensitive effect, but it has been replicated quite a lot, and more it's been built on. And so we know that much about it, but so it can help. And if you have the intention of being happy, that can help you become happy. So if you're smiling in order to feel happy, sort of doing something to try to make you feel happier can also have that effect. That's my short answer.
Nicole, would facial feedback, would that have anything to do with classical conditioning maybe? Where when you're activating like that zygomatic major, that you're, interesting.
Yeah, so there's different theories. So kind of Paul Ekman, facial, so the one who sort of
micro guy.
So he would say that no, it's hardwired, right? That this is a universal thing, that we see these expressions. So actually the most recognized universal expression is smiling. Like that's something any culture, anywhere, a smile is recognized as a smile. Other expressions are not, like it is somewhat universal, but not as much as you would think. So, like disgust nose, where you kind of go like this and it shuts off your nostrils. That's something that Paul Ekman would say that's hardwired, right? Because when you come across something disgusting, you need to close your nose so you don't breathe it in. And that makes sense. That's a good explanation, but it's not completely universally identified as being disgust. And so there's the nice story part of it, and then there's what does the evidence show? And there's still a lot of debate out there about that.
Cool.
Doug, you got anything? Okay.
Well, now I got a question. I have a question. You know that when in an intro we talk about this study and we talk about emotions. One of the things that I mentioned in our first day of class, we talk about fun experiments, and one of them is if you smile at someone and you catch their attention and you smile, you will naturally smile back. Okay? Do you do that with any other emotions? Like if I look at you sad, will you look back at me sad, or is it just smile that works that way?
I don't actually know about
mirror neurons work.
Yeah, I would think.
Yeah, your mirror neurons work both ways. So if you're watching someone grieve, you actually can report feeling grief.
Okay.
But it depends on how tuned in you are to them. If you like them, you're more likely to mimic them.
Well, the reason I asked is I wondered if it was because, in the original study where they showed the pictures and you tell the emotions, the highest one that they got was smiling. It's like universal. It's like 90-something%. And then the second one was like sad, which was like 60. That's a big change. And I just wondered, since it's such a more universal thing, smiling, that we're more prone to reflect that back. And I like to do it in class because then I look at students and smile at them and they can't stand it because they'll smile back.
On a side note, I've been accused of having RBF. And I will say that I do have RBF, but the B stands for beard. So those of my fellow bearded brethren out there, you should understand that people can't see the corners of our mouth that are turned up. I am frequently happy. And people are like, what's wrong? And I'll be like, I'm just bearded, right? I don't know what you want. Next question, Elaine. Thank you.
Okay. Next myth, wear red to attract a mate.
Well, that's why Doug's wearing his shirt.
That's why I got red on.
Thought it was fitting.
The bird study's the one that comes there. If you give a person red stimulus in an fMRI machine, they appear aroused. So there is some evidence to support that on at least out my end of the game. So this kind of initial attraction arousal phase that red would have that effect. They're not going to flock to you. It's not Axe body spray. Like, not going to
Isn't
work like that.
arousal though? Because a lot of people, when you say arousal, they think sexual arousal, but arousal means different things.
Okay,
like
in this case, I am meaning sexual arousal. Now, in the rest of psychology, arousal just means a state of awakenedness, right? So maybe defined by more beta waves and alpha waves kind of stuff. But here, arousal means arousal, like you're thinking, sex.
Okay.
The
Anybody
same
else?
is true when you give someone an hourglass figure, wider hips, something like that. Bald men with beards. Shut up about it, I know.
Dr. Henninger?
That's my answer. No, it's something I've heard before, but I don't know of any of the evidence on it, so I can't comment.
I would say that it is truly false, because if you want to really think about it in a research standpoint, you can really have bias. I mean, okay, red. Well, if you think about attraction, you see a female wearing red high heel shoes, that instantly puts you in the mind of, that's an arousal thing. So I think it's more of just a ploy, kind of like they tell you, wear a red tie, it shows power when you go to an interview and all this other stuff. I think it's just what you want to believe it. I mean, this is a culture that believes that you don't eat the green M&Ms because they make you, randy.
What?
Have you never heard that?
No.
Yes, green M&Ms are supposed to make you horny.
All right.
That was a big
Nicole, is it that you've never heard the effect of green M&Ms, or have you never heard someone say the word Randy?
A little bit of both.
All right, Elaine, we're up. What's next?
Okay, one last one. Emotions are irrational. True or false?
Well, I can't say true to that. Go ahead, Nicole.
What is rational?
There are two pills.
The blow one.
I mean, no. But sometimes yes. What does it mean?
Nicole, you're going to be a counselor before we're done. I guarantee it. That was a perfect counselor answer.
I mean,
Great.
okay,
Yes,
by
and
rational, do we mean it's the right thing to do? Like, well, it depends what does it mean? Like, what is the right thing to do in a given situation? So, like, emotions are very helpful sometimes, and sometimes it's the right response to the situation, but the wrong long-term response. Sometimes it's the other way around. Like, they're not mutually exclusive, which, I mean, they were historically, like, yeah, you have the emotional and then the rational and logical, and philosophers are logical, but
And I think
women
that's
are
really
emotional, and
really
so
where the statement's coming from, is the fact that you have your rational way of thinking and emotions don't fit into that. They fit into the irrational because, they're not easy to explain, I think, is the main problem.
We have to be careful about dichotomizing, though, right? Is this a true dichotomy, ration and emotion? And I don't think rational or logical and emotional are a dichotomy. I don't think they're on the same continuum, right? I think you can have a level or a degree of rational thought and a degree of an emotional thought. But if you're all the way pegged out on one side or the other, I kind of think of the MMPI here when you're like the masculinity scale. If you're a man and you peg out the masculinity scale, that's not good. That's not when you go home and you tell people and you're like, I'm a real man. That's not it at all. Having some of both is helpful. I think without emotion, it's every sci-fi movie with robots in history, right? It's not the logical choice.
So what you're saying is everybody wants to be as smart as Mr. Spock, but they really want to be emotional like Captain Kirk.
But without
If
emotion,
we go back,
yeah. So even with robots, though, right? They have a motivation programmed in. It's like, like I have a goal in mind, which could be thought of as an emotion, right? Of I'm trying to approach that goal, and avoid other things, and that's an emotional type response. So whatever your goal is, if you're motivated to do anything, it's emotion. Like it's that's the first response.
Well, and I think it too, it depends on how people think of emotion, because I know last semester I learned that just something as simple as making a decision takes a certain amount of emotion to make that decision. You know, whether you like donuts or what kind of donuts you like or whatever, it takes a certain amount of emotion. It doesn't mean you're crying in the corner, which, I mean, life without donuts would be crying in the corner, but you know, you need that certain amount of emotion to even know what kind of donut you want or where you want to get your donut from.
I think people
And everybody
think
knows the right answer is Krispy Kreme.
Ralph's.
Hey, you know
Okay,
how
I actually I'm corrected there. Ralph's.
Okay, you know how I feel about it. I have to say it. You can't spell donut without Doug.
So before we devolve into more bread references like sourdough,
I love it.
wonderful
I love
pastries like bear claws, and we start talking about all the delicious things that we don't have in front of us right now, we want to say thank you for joining us for another. If you're out there and you're feeling randy, it's because Doug's wearing red, and I don't really know about it. If your name is Randy, we're sorry about this episode. This has been another short episode of Psych Thoughts. We really appreciate you tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, share our videos with people you like, share them with people you don't like. We told you a couple of weeks ago, we don't mind being the fruitcake of your podcast or of your vlogs. We're more than happy being gifted to someone as a practical joke. As long as we're being gifted, it's good with us. Send us your questions. Psychthoughts@tentech.edu, psychthoughts@tntech.edu. Find us on Instagram, Psychthoughts2020. Find us on Twitter, PsychThoughtsR1. Find us on Facebook, facebook.com/PsychThoughts. And you found us on YouTube, Psych Thoughts Radio. Until next time, from me, Doug, Elaine, and our special guest, Dr. Nicole Henniger, see ya.